Good morning, everybody. All right, today we're going to go through 4 more video filters in Final Cut Pro X. We're going to go through the cast filter, the censor filter, the cold steel filter, and the color corrector. This is one of my favorites. I'm not going to go through these two because they are ones that I personally created and you're not going to have them. So, all right, let's go through them. Cast. Cast is basically a color riser. It will make everything kind of the same color and only the luminance will come out, basically. You have several different, well, you have 3 different things that you can adjust. You can adjust the amount of the cast. So this is none. Let's put it right up on his face here. This is none. And this is 100%, so you can see the fade between the two. You can also adjust, it goes by midtones, but you can adjust the color simply by clicking on it and picking a color that you want to use as a cast. Let's use this one. And then there's one more slider here that says protect skin. And what this will do, as you can see, it kind of pulls out the color of the skin tones and allows them to pass, allows them to come through. So let's say we wanted this to go black and white. We'd probably do full black. Let's see if I have a full. We'll do gray. Probably something similar to that, and this would be very much to akin to a rotoscoping type filter. And this would be very similar to a color pass type filter. Sorry, it makes the pizza look moldy, but that's because the tone of the pizza is very similar to skin tones. And that looks wrong. It looks like they burned it. All right. So that's cast. Let's get rid of that. Let's go with censor. Now censor is this little blocky thing. This is if you want to cut out someone's face. Let's cut out the pizza, for example. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and let's censor the pizza. Okay. First off, let me show you the different things that you have. You have your amount, which is the amount of pixelation or blurriness that you have. The method, you have pixel, blur, darken, and rectangle. We'll stay with pixelate for this one. You have a radius. You have a center, which you can just grab and drag, and I think you can also adjust the radius like this. And aspect ratio. You can see how it's pulling in the sides. Now it's going to push out the sides. So this will be good for the pizza. You also have invert, which will censor everything but the pizza. And then amount boost, which doesn't affect everything. It only affects the pixelate and the blur. It does not affect darken or rectangle. So let's censor this pizza and make it look like a Minecraft pizza. Let's bring the radius down just a bit. Just the toppings on the pizza. That's what we'll do. All right, cool. Okay, it starts there. We're going to animate the center. And we'll have it stop right there. All right, and let's move that up there.
Detrás de una gran pizza hay un gran pizza.
So see how it follows that? We can have it go away after that, but watch how it follows the pizza.
Detrás de una gran pizza hay un.
All right, so now we have a Minecraft pizza. Okay, let's get rid of censor, and let's go with cold steel. Cold steel is very similar to cast, only I cannot pick the color. I still have an amount, and I still have the protect skin. But I have one other option that's new, and that is shadows. And basically this is akin to contrast.
Pizza hay un gran pizzero.
And cold still makes your pizza look moldy. And last but not least, definitely not least, this is one of my favorite filters. It's called the Color Corrector. I'm going to pull down a different clip here and throw it in here because I use this color correction filter almost every day. My camera shoots really good video, but because of its high dynamic range, I need to go in and tweak it a little bit and pull out some better color from it. And I can do that because the camera has such a good dynamic range. So most of the time when you shoot stuff, you're going to get very raw, very kind of dark footage or not so pretty footage. And you use a color corrector to develop the video the way that you want. There's two ways to apply the color corrector. It used to be in an older version of Final Cut Pro, a color corrector was already here and you could just add more. But now it's a filter because you can apply it to anything, including titles, whereas before you couldn't do that. Okay, so now that we can do that, we can just grab it, drag it, and drop it to apply it there. Or my favorite is Command 6 will automatically apply it. Whoops, I accidentally hid that because I hit Command 5 at the same time. All right, you have 3 different sections: color, saturation, and exposure. And then in each of the sections you have these little balls that you can drag around and move around. Exposure looks like this. This is the one I always start with. You can adjust your global exposure. You can see how as it gets up in the highs it starts to burn. Down in the lows starts to burn in that direction. Starts to crunch, actually, is what they call it. I usually don't mess with the global because even as I bring it up a little bit, it kind of grays out my blacks, and I like them a little more lower. This is the black, well, the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights. I usually go black, mid, white. And usually what I do is I will bring up my midtones first to where I want them, and then I bring up my highlights to where they're just about to burn. Especially on these clips, this is what I usually do. And then I slightly crunch my shadows. Give it a little bit of a more contrasty look. I like that look. Interesting. All right, now if we go to saturation, we can bring up the global saturation here, which will bring up the saturation on everything. Or we can bring up the saturation in the shadows, midtones, or highlights. Now most of the stuff is midtones. Midtones covers a big, huge area, but you can see if I bring the midtones down, you can see a little bit of color here in his forehead, back here, and here along this part. You don't see much color in the darks, but you still see some color in his shirt. And that is just because most of the dark stuff doesn't really have a lot of color in this clip. All right, highlights. You can bring the saturation up there and bring it down, and you can still see that there's still color in his shirt and in his face, but you don't see any color back here anymore. So if I bring these two down and bring this one up, you can see where the shadows are right here in his shirt, and there's a little bit here. Now let's switch with midtones. You can see where the midtone coloring is. And let's do highlights. And there's a lot of color here in the highlights. You can also zero them out here. Let's bring it up just a bit and let's go to color. Now color is a little different. You don't have sliders like you do with the others. You can grab the numbers and bring them this way, and grab the percentages and bring them this way. But you can also just grab the ball and move it around however you want. All right, this one is global. It will basically adjust the overall cast. This is the shadows, midtones, and highlights. And you may find that you might want to paint a picture where, let's say your highlights, you want to have a little bit more blue, and then your midtones, you want to have a little bit more red, like that. And your darks, your shadows, you might want to have a little bit of, I don't know. Let's throw some. It's difficult to play with the shadows here. Let's leave it like that. A lot of the times you won't want to make drastic adjustments to these because they're very, very drastic. All right, let's go ahead and zero these out. Well, actually, we don't even have to do that. Let's do this. I'm going to put my shadows clear up here in green, my midtones clear up here in blue, and my highlights way up here in red. And if you look at them very closely, you can see where the different areas are. Let's take this to yellow. All right, so you can see that the shadows are in this area along here. And because of the blue, let's go with green. Because of the green, you can see the midtones here, and then the red has the highlights over here. If we bring the red closer and just take it to this blue, there we go. That looks good. So our shadows are in orange, our midtones are in green, and our highlights are in cyan. So you can pretty much get a good dissection of the picture and figure out what's what. Okay, so that's the color corrector. Let's go ahead and toss this one as well. Oh, there's one more thing with the color corrector that I forgot to mention. Color corrector has a color mask. And you can add a shape mask. And I believe you can invert that mask as well. But you have different controls for these masks. And then you can invert the masks here so that the color does not affect on Gus's face. And not only do you have the shape mask, but you have a color mask as well. Let's get rid of the shape mask. And the color mask would be something that you pick from here. And it basically becomes a bypass or a color pass filter. So you can take your color corrector, go to your board, and let's make the saturation into nothing. And let's go back to this board and let's see. We'll pick his face. What's neat about this is it's kind of like the instant alpha from preview. There we go. Anyway, there's a lot of things you can do with a color corrector. I'm doing extreme stuff. You generally won't have to go that extreme. You tend to kind of take it lightly. Okay, so that was the cast filter, the censor filter, the cold steel filter, and the color correction tool. And then next time I will go through colorize, combat, cool tones, and crisp contrast. And these are mostly looks. And they're pretty simple. We'll get into them and have a little fun with them. All right, so if you have any questions or comments or anything, please feel free to leave me a message, leave me a comment. I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. And they kind of help me get ideas, so they kind of let me know what you guys want to know. All right, thank you very much for watching.